Hello and welcome to the Virtual Village Hall and your session of Artist in Focus. I'm Rachel from I Printed That, and each month we take a look at an artist, their work, their life, find out a little bit about their story and what influenced them, and then spend a few moments just making some art inspired by their work. These sessions look to last around 30 to 45 minutes, so they're great for just adding a little creative break to your day, whether that's in the morning first thing, at lunchtime, or in the evening. Now, this session, if you're watching on catch up, will also be on the Virtual Village Hall YouTube channel. So anytime you can pause it, rewind it, fast forward it, whatever makes the session for yourself. So in this month's Artist in Focus, we are looking at an artist who has been influencing design for over 100 years. Even if you've never heard his name, Piet Mondrian, then there's a good chance you have seen his work. Now, I've got some slides here on my laptop, which I'm going to be flicking through as I let you know a little bit more information about Mondrian. I've got Andrew behind the scenes who is helping me out to make sure that you get the best presentation possible. So, as I said, there's a good chance that you've seen his work. So that may be through pop culture, architecture, fashion, like this famous Yves Saint Laurent dress from the 1960s. Dutch artist Piet Mondrian's geometric works, which focused on primary colours, on balance, on symmetry, are iconic. So he began his career painting Dutch windmills and trees and farm scenes. And as you can see, his early works are full of detail. They have soft, natural colours to them, and they're very different from his later abstract styles. Mondrian was deeply influenced by Theosophy, which is a spiritual movement which tries to bring together science, nature, and the divine. Now, he believed that by reducing art to pure form and pure colour, then he'd find harmony beneath the everyday chaos of life. So he was influenced by Cubism, but in Cubism, the lines often tilt and they overlap. But Mondrian wanted to simplify it even further. So he started to remove the diagonals and then the curves, and he only used in the end vertical and horizontal lines. So we can see some of his work here starting to become a little bit more geometric, coming away from the natural, although the colour palette is still the same. So in 1917, he co-founded the de style movement, meaning the style, with his friend and fellow artist Theo van Doesburg. Now, the group believed that using straight lines and right angles and primary colours would express this universal harmony that they were trying to achieve. Now, it's said that later he and Van Doesburg fell out because Van Doesburg began using vertical lines, and Mondrian saw that as a complete betrayal to their principles. Now, he loved perfection, as we can see by these paintings, but although it looks as though the paintings are carefully planned out, it was all part of a process. So he would often move lines and coloured areas around, repeatedly changing it so that the pattern felt just right. So that composition to him sat just right. And he'd take paper in rectangles to the canvas, then he'd shuffle them around, then he'd repaint in just to make those lines perfect. I imagine much like Matisse did with his collages. And just as a little sidebar, if you like Matisse and want to have a go at seeing some of his work, then on the Virtual Village Hall I did an Artist in Focus session just a few months ago, which had a similar theme where we looked at Matisse's work, his life, and then we did some art based on his style. So that will be on the Virtual Village Hall YouTube channel if you'd like to go back and find that. So back to Mondrian. He moved to New York during World War II, or just at the start of World War II, And it was the energy of the city, the lights, the traffic, the jazz movement that completely captivated him. And we can see here in one of his later works, Broadway Boogie Woogie, you can see it's full of rhythm, joy, colour. You can see that there's that city grid that inspired him and that pulses of jazz. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of Lego, this one. I don't know about you. So just going back slightly to when his days in Paris, it's said that visitors said that his studio felt like just like stepping into one of his paintings. These stark white walls, the black and white, I'd imagine checkered floor, then pieces of paper, rectangles of blue, red, yellow, all pinned up in perfect balance. And he worked until the end of his life when he died in 1944, sadly of pneumonia at the age of 71. And there was an unfinished painting called Victory Boogie Woogie, and also unfinished colour papers still taped to his studio walls. So that's a brief bit about Piet Mondrian. There is so much more to discover. So if you do find that very interesting, please do go and have a look on the internet. There is just so much. It's so difficult to condense these sessions just into that kind of half-hour slot. But we want to get creative. So we want to start doing some of our own work based on his style. So I'm going to go back to some of his earlier work, some that we've just seen. And I want to start with this tree. So we're going to start with a little bit of just a warm-up exercise. For this session, really you don't need lots of fancy materials, art materials, just use what you've got. So just some paper. So I've got some paper from a sketchbook. And also for this one, I'm going to use some blue paper, but you can just use any paper. Use cardboard from your recycling bin, packaging paper from your recycling, lining paper from wallpaper, just printer paper, any paper at all works fine for this, because we're just going to be sketching to start off with. Other things that you need for today, just a pencil or a biro is absolutely fine. I'm also going to be using charcoal, but that's not necessary. I will also be using some black Sharpie pens, but again, not necessary, just use what you have. And also I have got some paint as well, some acrylic paints to use just in those primary colours of the yellow, blue and the red that Mondrian used. So we're going to start with just a little warm-up sketch of this tree, just using that as the basis for our work. So we're going to be copying, which I know at school we were told you mustn't copy, but actually copying an artist's work is a really good way of seeing that the process that they use, and it makes you look a lot closer at their work, because as you follow the lines of their brushes or their pencils, you really start to get a bit of an understanding about the artists themselves. So we're going to start just with this sketch, and then we're going to move on to do just a series of sketches of the same tree, but each one is going to be more and more simplified as we come up to those, just a tree made of those basic Mondrian geometric shapes. Okay, so are you ready? And each little exercise is going to be timed as well, just to keep us on track. So if you're ready, I'm going to pop you down so you can have a little look at what I'm doing. Okay, so I've got my blue paper here. Oh, thank you, Andrea. That's brilliant. Andrea's behind the scenes helping me out. She's absolutely on the ball with this, which is great. And I'm going to take my charcoal. As I say, just use any implement you've got to do some sketching. And I'm just going to give us 3 minutes for this, so it is really quick, but just go for it. It's just a warm-up exercise. No one has to see it, so on your marks, get set, go. Okay. Okay, so it's 30 seconds gone already. And we can see these lovely curvy lines, really natural, that Mondrian used in the beginning. So this is like 1908, 1909. And I'm not looking for perfection, I'm just looking for the flow of that work. I am looking at just these negative spaces, and if that's not a term you're familiar with, negative space just means the bits that aren't filled in, as it were. So this bit, for example, would be a negative space. And it's something that we're going to look at a bit more and more as our drawings progress. Okay, so that's 1.5 minutes left. Time to that's a minute gone, so I'm just going to pop in all of these. Just enough time to pop in some of the landscape as well. Actually, it's a bit busy around here, isn't it? So let's add. So that's 5 seconds left. Make it a bit darker, and that is time. Brilliant. Okay, so just a quick sketch to warm us up based on one of Mondrian's sketches. So now we're going to take a little look at, I just want to start with this one here, which is a farm, which is a drawing of a farm. And I've cropped just the top of the trees. And as you can see, those negative spaces are becoming more and more sort of geometric. On the left, we've got that, thank you, Andrea. On the left, we've got those long kind of almost rectangles, and then on the right we've got more ovals and circles. So what I want to do is use this picture, this image of this tree here. Just take a few moments just to let your eyes go around the tree, up the trunk, through the branches, look at those negative spaces. And we're going to do a simple sketch of the tree, just like we've done with that first one. Simple sketch of the tree, and then we're going to do a sketch of a tree where we stylize it a bit more, just based on that farm drawing of the Mondrian farm drawing we've just looked at. And then we're going to do a final drawing which really becomes very abstract, so the tree is just made up of geometric shapes itself. Okay, so if you're ready, grab another piece of paper. You could use a blue, or just go for just a piece of that paper that I was talking about earlier. So anything from something torn out of a sketchbook, printer paper, or parcel paper from your recycling bin. And again, we're just going to give us 4 minutes on this, I think. So I'm going to use charcoal again. You can use pencil, whatever you want really. And it's just going to be a sketch similar to the one that we've just done. So when you're ready, go. Okay. We've got some nice geometry. I've just noticed as well, we've got these 2 poles holding it up, which is really cool. So we can do some nice stuff with that. So we take a little bit more time on this one, but we've still only got a few minutes. And again, not necessarily after perfection. I'm not looking at detail either, so don't worry about shading. we're just looking at those shapes. I've got this little geometric sort of bench, these geometric shapes here with the bench. And do you remember on Mondrian's sketch, he drew parts of the landscape just using just really simple lines that we're doing here. So it's 2.5 minutes left. So let's get back onto my tree. I've got distracted. So I'm going to use those lovely flowing lines that he used just to show the tree here as we come across the top off the page. Off the page again. So it's 1.5 minutes left. Okay, 1 minute left, so let's start filling in some of these spaces. So I'm going to just fill in the leaves just with a solid colour, because what I'm really after is looking at these spaces here, these negative spaces between the branches. Okay, so it's 20 seconds left. Four seconds left. Just I'll put them in there, and that is time. Okay, so we've got our sketch of a tree. So now you can either work from your sketch or work from the image that you can see on the screen. And we're going to simplify this a little bit further. So if you remember this here, we're still going to keep it fairly natural, but we want to stylize some of these shapes a bit more. So start looking at the tree, at the sketch. So we've got maybe a sort of a vertical line here. We've got some more oval shapes over here. This one's kind of a little bit sort of triangular. You can maybe make that into a vertical on the slant. We've got some great verticals going on here. And we've got this lovely little composition of the that bench here. So for the next one, I want you just to use those shapes. So it's still going to look like a tree, possibly, but I want you to make it more sort of stylized based on this photo. So what I might do actually I'll tell you what, I'm going to leave this image up, and we're going to use your sketch to create that kind of image. Put that in the middle so you can see it properly. Okay, so we're going to give another 4 minutes for this one, I think. So as I said, we're just looking at the negative spaces, really. They're our main kind of lookouts to simplify this tree even more. Okay, so when you're ready, start. That's 4 minutes to go. Okay. So I'm just drawing the negative spaces themselves. And we're just going to make those lines a little bit thicker. And just start thinking how these could translate into more geometric shapes for our next piece. So I'm also just going to add some of the branches from there. We're going to add the trunk itself. And you really can just what's the word? Not translate. Let's just say use the word translate. I can't think of a better word. Translate this as you see it. So you don't have to be copying what I'm doing. Just what you see, put down on the page. So I want those two to join up in my sketch. So I'm going to use this line like that. And then, so we've just got over a minute left. So I want now to add some of that feeling of those leaves, just like Mondrian's done in his painting. So I'm really just looking at the shapes that I made. When I did my drawing. And this is a great way to stylize or kind of simplify a drawing. If you just draw it over and over again, quicker and quicker, you'll start seeing these more kind of simplified shapes. So I could turn these into more rectangular shapes. Okay, and that is our 4 minutes up. So hopefully you've got something nice and interesting to play around with. So something that looks kind of like a tree, but it's not. We've been focusing in on those negative shapes, negative spaces. So for our next and final piece, really, so we're going to have a little bit more time on it. We're going to use the example of some of Mondrian's work. So it's going to start to look more like this, or kind of like this. So somewhere in between, where we're going to be making up some geometric, thank you, Andrea. We're going to be making up, a piece is going to be made up of geometric shapes, but using what we've drawn here. So they could be a little bit more like this. If you do want to stick with the sort of the natural or the curves, you could do something like this. Or if you really want to go for Mondrian, then go for something like this. So let's, hang on, just let me flick through briefly. Okay, no, that's next week, next month. I think I'm going to leave this one up for you, just so you can kind of refer to it. But as I said, you can use either very geometric or something more like this. So we're going to have a few more minutes on this one. So let's go with 6 minutes, because if you want to, you can also then add some colours. So once you've drawn your shapes, then I'd like you to just add some colours as well. So let's do 6 minutes for this one. Okay, so just to recap, we're going to use our sketch to create something like the image that you can see on the right, or that very geometric primary colours that Mondrian used. Then we are going to colour them in. Okay, so I'm going to stick with that kind of A5 size, just because of the time that we've got. And I'm going to have my sketch just to the side of me, so I can be copying that, but that's so you can see it as well. So 6 minutes starting now, and I'm actually just going to use a pencil for this, then go over it in a marker pen and then paint. Okay, so should have done a ruler as well, but that's fine, we're good. Doesn't look like maybe did really did use here. Anyway, if you've got a ruler, please go grab a ruler. Actually, just grab a ruler. 6. There we are. Sorry, I didn't actually include that on the so this would be good if you have got a bit more time, if you wanted a bit more time to really measure stuff perfectly, use a set square perhaps. This is when you could pause if you're watching on catch up. So if you are watching live today, hello, I haven't forgotten about you, don't worry. Let us know where you're watching from today. And I always love to see your work on the virtual village hall. So if you give this a go, then please do post your work in the comments section. Okay, so just to let you know what I've got here. So I've got these, this is this, this is this, this is this, and then these three are, well, actually no, these are these three. These three are 1, 2, 3, and then this I'm just going to draw down here. So I've got 3.5 minutes left. So I'm just going to add these three here. that's those three. So I'm going to start finishing this off now because I want a bit of time to colour it in. So I'm going to box it off. As I say, I'm sure Mondrian would be turning in his grave for me not using a set square to make sure those corners are tight. Now I just want to take a moment just to look back. And I quite like that actually. So let's just quickly go over in a Sharpie pen or just a permanent marker. I will fairly steady hand. I'm doing time, but 1.5 minutes left. Okay, I'm liking this. So, or we're actually going to go over time because I just need to. I didn't actually put my paint out. So I'm just going to pause the time for a second. Ooh, that leaves us with minute 20. I just want to pop a little bit of paint out, just in my lovely primary colours. And then just before I paint, I'm just going to have a little look to see where I want some of those ones to go. So I'm going to start with the red. So let's put the timer back on. That's 1 minute. 20 still to go. So, and I just want to very quickly paint those in. So at this point, I'm not thinking too much about where I want those colours to go, she says. And then let's just do a blue. Maybe just blue there. It needs a yellow or a blue there. Then I'm going to go for a yellow down the side as well. So that's just 15 seconds left. And that is time. Brilliant. Okay. So let's just have a little recap over what we've done. So if Andrea, if you could make my screen, people can see that the other way. That's it, perfect, thank you. So we started off with a sketch which is a copy of one of Mondrian's tree sketches from 1908 or 1909. We then looked at a photo of a tree and we did our own sketch based on that. We particularly looked at the negative spaces and we drew something a little bit more simplified based on that sketch. Then using those simple shapes, we turned that into something a bit more geometric. So although this bears no resemblance to a tree, we can see the evolution of that from the sketch to the simple shapes to it simplified even further. So I hope you've enjoyed that. How did that feel? Was that good? Is it something that you've never done before? Something that you want to have a go at? Please do let us know in the comments. I hope you've enjoyed today's session. Now I have another session for you next month. So if I just slip back to my slides. Thank you, Andrea. So next month's artist is the Canadian artist Emily Carr, and we are doing this just around the time of National Tree Week, and she did some incredibly beautiful paintings of trees, as you can see, with so much movement and life. So I'm really looking forward to showing you that one next month, and that's going to be on Thursday the 20th November at 11 AM here on the Virtual Village Hall. So please do put a date in your diary for that one. So that's me done for today. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, take care and I will see you next time. Bye.